Promises and distance, Josephine Carter stared at the horizon where the ocean melted into the sky. The research vessel swayed gently beneath her feet as she checked the water samples one last time. 6 years studying marine ecosystems, and the ocean still surprised her. Behind her, a satellite phone buzzed. Ethan's daily call. "Dr. Carter speaking," she answered with a smile in her voice. "Dr. Carter, this is your husband. I miss you terribly." Ethan's warm laughter traveled across the miles between them. "How's the North Atlantic treating you?" Cold and mysterious as always, Joe replied, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "2 more weeks and I'm home." "How did the interview go?" There was a pause, then excitement burst through the line. "I got it, Joe! Director of Sustainable Development at Meridian Tech. They want me to start next month." Joe's heart swelled with pride even as it sank with understanding. Meridian's headquarters were in Vancouver, across the country from their cozy apartment in Halifax. Wow, Ethan, we've been working toward this for years." She meant it, despite the complication. His environmental engineering work had always aimed at larger impact. "I know the timing isn't ideal," he said, voice softening. "You've got 4 months left on your research contract." "Hey, we can handle a few months apart," she assured him. "I'll join you as soon as my project wraps up. Think of it as a trial run for when I do those long research expeditions we've talked about." Later that evening, Joe curled up in her narrow bunk as the ship cut through dark waters. She opened their shared digital album, flicking through memories. Their wedding 3 years ago, hiking the Cape Breton trails, Ethan sleeping with their cat Rigel sprawled across his chest. 8 years together, 3 as husband and wife. The separation plan had seemed practical when they mapped it out. Ethan would move first, establish them in Vancouver, and she'd follow in 4 months. They'd done distance before during her research, voyages, never this long. But the foundation of their relationship was solid. The weeks that followed blurred into a whirlwind of packing, planning, and precious last moments together. They celebrated with friends at their favorite seafood restaurant, hiked to the lighthouse one last time, and spent their final night tangled in each other's arms, whispering promises of daily calls and monthly visits. At the airport, Ethan held her close. "This is temporary," he murmured into her hair. "By summer, we'll be together in our new home." "I'll be counting the days," Joe replied, memorizing the feeling of his arms around her. The first month passed in a flurry of adjustment. Ethan's video calls toured her through his sleek downtown apartment. He described enthusiastic colleagues, ambitious projects, and Vancouver's stunning landscapes. Joe immersed herself in research, extending her hours at the Marine Conservation Center to keep loneliness at bay. "The team is incredible," Ethan told her during week 6, his face slightly pixelated on her screen. Behind him, Joe glimpsed modern furniture she didn't recognize. "Especially my project partner, Olivia. She's been showing me around, introducing me to everyone who matters." "That's great," Joe said, ignoring a tiny prickle of unease. "I'm glad you're not alone there." "How could I be alone when half my heart is with you?" he replied smoothly. "Now, tell me about those dolphin recordings you mentioned yesterday." As fall deepened into winter, Joe marked days off her calendar. 3 months down, 1 to go. But something was shifting subtly, like the almost imperceptible change in ocean currents. Before a storm, video calls became audio only. Detailed conversations shortened to brief check-ins. Twice Ethan missed their scheduled connections, blaming late meetings. Joe told herself not to worry. Starting a demanding new job would strain anyone's attention. Still, as she finished packing her research equipment that evening, she couldn't shake the feeling that the distance between them had grown into something more than mere miles. Growing shadows. The first missed video call could have been anything. Poor connection, dead battery, the typical technological hiccups that punctuated modern relationships. The second time, Joe accepted Ethan's explanation about back-to-back meetings. By the fifth missed call in 3 weeks, the pattern was impossible to ignore. "Sorry, things are just crazy here." Ethan's voice sounded distant through the phone speaker. "The Fraser River restoration project is consuming every waking hour." Joe paced her apartment, phone pressed to her ear. "I understand busy, Ethan, but we agreed to prioritize communication." "I am prioritizing," he said, a defensive edge in his voice. "I'm also trying to establish myself in this position. You know how important this is for our future." The word "our" hung between them like a question mark. Joe sighed, staring at the half-packed boxes around her. Just 3 weeks remained before she'd join him. "I miss seeing your face. Could we please have a proper video call tonight? I want to show you the lease termination paperwork and get your opinion on which furniture to ship." "Tonight's not good," he replied quickly. "The team is working late, then we have a dinner with potential investors." "We? You mean the whole department?" "Just the key project staff. Olivia arranged it. She has connections with everyone in Vancouver's environmental sector." He paused. "Look, I need to run into a meeting. Talk tomorrow?" Later, curled on their sofa with Rigel purring beside her, Joe opened Instagram. She rarely used social media, but something pushed her to search for Meridian Tech's page. Their recent posts showed sleek offices, staff events, and project announcements. She scrolled idly until a photo from 2 weeks ago made her finger freeze. It showed Ethan at what appeared to be a cocktail reception, raising a glass alongside a striking woman with copper-toned skin and a confident smile. The caption identified her as Olivia Santos, lead environmental strategist. Their body language, standing closer than colleagues typically would, sent a cold ripple through Joe's chest. "I'm overthinking," Joe whispered to Rigel, who blinked sleepily in response. "They're colleagues. It's nothing." The next morning, Joe called Ethan's office directly after he missed their scheduled check-in. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter is in a presentation with Ms. Santos," his assistant informed her. "Would you like to leave a message?" "This is his wife," Joe said, the words feeling strangely formal on her tongue. "When do you expect him to be available?" "Oh." The assistant sounded genuinely surprised. "They're heading straight to the airport afterward. The Seattle conference? I thought, well, I assumed you knew." Joe's fingers tightened around the phone. "Seattle conference?" "The Pacific Northwest Sustainability Summit. They'll be gone until Sunday." Ethan had mentioned nothing about Seattle, 5 days away, and not a word. That evening, Joe called her closest friend, Regina, who listened without interruption. "Have you asked him directly if something's going on?" Regina finally said. "And sound like the suspicious, insecure wife?" Joe shook her head. "Maybe there's a reasonable explanation. Or maybe you need to trust your instincts," Regina countered gently. "You're a scientist, Joe. You notice patterns. What's the pattern telling you?" The pattern was telling her that her husband was slipping away. That night, Joe made a decision. Her research project would conclude in 10 days. Instead of waiting the additional 2 weeks they'd planned, she would pack what she needed and go to Vancouver immediately after. When Ethan called the next day, sounding rushed and distant from his Seattle hotel room, Joe kept her voice light. "I can't wait to see you," she said, revealing nothing of her accelerated plans. "We have so much to catch up on." "Absolutely," he agreed, though something in his tone didn't match the words. "Hey, I should go. Olivia and I are presenting in 20 minutes. Olivia again. Always Olivia. As Joe hung up, she looked around at their Halifax apartment, the life they had built together, and felt it already slipping into memory. Whatever was happening in Vancouver, she would face it head-on. No more shadows, no more distance. Just the truth, whatever it might be. The unveiling. The Vancouver Convention Center gleamed like a massive glass ship docked at the waterfront. Joe smoothed her emerald dress, the one Ethan had always loved, and checked her reflection in her phone's camera. The transcontinental flight had left shadows under her eyes, but determination lent her face a striking intensity. She hadn't told Ethan she was coming. After landing, she'd checked into a hotel, showered, changed, and headed directly to Meridian Tech's annual sustainability gala. It wasn't how she'd imagined their reunion, but something told her that surprise was her only ally now. The event coordinator checked her ID against the guest list. "I'm afraid your name isn't here, Dr. Carter." "My husband is Ethan Carter, Meridian's Director of Sustainable Development," Joe explained. "I've just arrived in Vancouver and wanted to surprise him." Recognition flickered across the coordinator's face. "Oh, Mr. Carter, of course, please go in. They're about to present the River Restoration Initiative Awards." The ballroom was crowded with Vancouver's environmental elite, politicians, scientists, corporate sponsors mingling under crystal chandeliers. Joe navigated through the crowd, searching for Ethan's familiar figure. A voice over the sound system drew everyone's attention to the stage. "And now, to present our most ambitious project to date, please welcome Ethan Carter and Olivia Santos, the visionary team behind the Fraser River Renewal Program." Joe's eyes locked onto the stage as Ethan appeared, handsome in a tailored suit she didn't recognize. Beside him stood the woman from the Instagram photo, Olivia, resplendent in a crimson gown that accentuated her confident stance. Their shoulders touched as they approached the microphone. The CEO joined them, beaming. "Before they share the exciting details of this groundbreaking initiative, I'd like to congratulate Ethan, not just professionally, but personally. He and Olivia recently announced their engagement, proving that sometimes the best partnerships begin in the boardroom." The room erupted in applause. Glasses clinked. Camera flashes popped like stars going supernova. Joe felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Engagement? Her hand instinctively reached for her wedding ring, still firmly in place. 3 years of marriage, erased with a single announcement. Ethan hadn't seen her yet. He was smiling broadly, his arm sliding around Olivia's waist in a gesture of practiced intimacy. The woman leaned into him, her diamond ring catching the light as she raised the microphone. "Thank you all for the warm wishes," Olivia was saying. "Ethan and I are thrilled to build both a sustainable future for our region and a life together." Something cold and clear crystallized in Joe's chest. She'd come for answers. Now she had them. But she wasn't leaving without making sure everyone else had the truth, too. With steady steps, Joe approached the stage. A security guard moved to intercept her, but the event coordinator from earlier waved him off, whispering, "That's Mr. Carter's wife." The guard's confused expression said everything. Joe climbed the 3 steps to the platform. The room quieted as attendees noticed the unexpected addition to the presentation. Ethan, mid-sentence about watershed protection, faltered when he spotted her. His face drained of color. "Joe," he whispered, the microphone catching his voice and amplifying it through the silent room. You're here." "I am," she replied, her voice remarkably steady. "Though apparently I shouldn't exist." Olivia looked between them, confusion turning to dawning horror. "Ethan! Who is this?" Joe reached into her clutch and removed a folded document, opening it for everyone to see. "I'm Josephine Carter, his wife of 3 years." She turned toward the stunned audience. "I have our marriage certificate right here. Apparently my husband forgot to divorce me before proposing to someone else." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones raised, capturing the moment. The CEO stepped forward, his forced smile cracking at the edges. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No," Joe interrupted, her gaze fixed on Ethan. "I think enough has happened in private. Wouldn't you agree, Ethan?" Her husband, the man she'd loved for 8 years, opened his mouth, closed it, then looked desperately toward Olivia, who had stepped away from him, her eyes wide with betrayal. "You're married?" Olivia hissed. "You told me you were divorced 2 years ago." "I can explain." Ethan began, but both women were already turning away. Joe handed the marriage certificate to the shell-shocked CEO. "For your records," she said quietly. "You might want to review your company's ethics policy." As she descended the steps, the room erupted in confused chatter. Cameras continued to flash. Someone from a local environmental blog called out for a statement. Joe ignored them all, walking straight back toward the exit. Behind her, she heard Ethan calling her name, his footsteps hurrying after her. She didn't slow down or look back. There was nothing left to say. Aftermath and echoes. The story broke by midnight. Double life. Environmental director's shocking deception exposed by wife splashed across local news sites, complete with blurry photos captured by gala attendees. By morning, it had gone viral, spreading through environmental circles and beyond. Joe's inbox filled with interview requests from journalists, messages of support from strangers, and a formal apology from Meridian Tech's board of directors. Joe ignored them all, sitting cross-legged, on her hotel bed as Regina's voice came through the speakerphone. "I've got your cat, your important papers, and 4 suitcases of clothes," Regina reported. "The shipping company will handle the rest. How are you holding up?" Joe searched for words that could possibly encompass the hollow ache in her chest, the shock still reverberating through her system. "I'm taking it hour by hour. Has he tried to contact you?" 27 missed calls, 42 text messages. I haven't read any of them. Ethan had shown up at her hotel around 2 a.m., drunk and desperate. The front desk had called her room. She'd denied him access. "Good," Regina said firmly. "His explanations can go through a lawyer." The lawyer came the next day, Simone Washburn, a sharp-eyed woman recommended by Regina's cousin. She laid out options with clinical precision while Joe stared out the hotel window at the Vancouver skyline. "Given the circumstances and the evidence of infidelity, we're in a strong position," Simone explained. "British Columbia's family law provisions favor you here. The most straightforward path is to file immediately citing adultery." "I don't want revenge," Joe said quietly. "I just want out." "Understanding. But I strongly recommend we document everything while the evidence is fresh. The social media posts, the public announcement of their engagement, the witnesses from the gala, all of it strengthens your case." Later that week, Meridian Tech announced Ethan's leave of absence, pending an ethics investigation. Olivia Santos gave a brief statement to local press. "I was deceived just as thoroughly as everyone else. I'm cooperating fully with the company's inquiry and request privacy during this difficult time." Joe rented a small apartment in North Vancouver, far from Meridian's downtown offices. She arranged to transfer her research to the Pacific Marine Analysis Center, grateful that her professional reputation remained intact. Colleagues treated her with careful kindness, never mentioning the incident directly, but offering silent support in small ways. Coffee left on her desk, invitations to lunch, introductions to fellow researchers. 6 weeks after the gala, Joe finally agreed to meet Ethan at a neutral location, a quiet cafe overlooking the harbor. He looked thinner, shadows beneath his eyes mirroring her own. "Thank you for coming," he said, hands wrapped around his coffee cup to hide their trembling. "I'm not here for reconciliation," Joe clarified immediately. "Simone says there are papers you need to sign." "I know." He glanced down. "Joe, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to understand." "Understand what, Ethan? That while I was counting the days until we'd be together again, you were building a life with someone else? That you let me pack our things, terminate our lease, and prepare to join you, all while knowing it was a lie?" "It wasn't planned," he insisted, voice breaking. "I was alone in a new city, feeling the pressure to fit in, to network. Olivia was, connected to everyone who mattered. She took an interest in me, in my work. It started as friendship then." He trailed off, seeing the coldness in Joe's eyes. "Then you decided our 8 years together, our marriage, our plans. All of it was, disposably." I got lost, he whispered, caught up in a version of myself that wasn't real, a version that people here admired, that advanced quickly, that wasn't tied to the past. Joe slid the divorce papers across the table. Sign these and you can be that version permanently. When the divorce finalized 3 months later, Joe felt no triumph, only a quiet, aching release. The viral moment had faded from public interest, though occasionally she'd receive a message from someone who recognized her name. "You're the marine biologist from that gala incident, right?" She'd grown to hate that reduction of her life's most painful moment to a sensational anecdote. She was more than that night, more than Ethan's betrayal. She was Dr. Josephine Carter, Marine Conservation Specialist, recently published in the Journal of Coastal Research, new volunteer at Vancouver's Marine Mammal Rescue Center. On difficult nights, she'd walk along the seawall, letting the rhythm of the waves remind her that even the deepest wounds eventually smooth into something you can live with, like sea glass polished by persistent tides. Reclaiming joy. 14 months after the night that had shattered her world, Joe knelt on the rocky shore of Lighthouse Park, carefully measuring a tide pool for her community science project. The spring sunshine warmed her shoulders as she recorded observations on her waterproof tablet. "Excuse me," called a deep voice from behind. "Are you Dr. Carter, the marine biologist?" Joe turned, squinting against the light to see a tall figure approaching. Her stomach tightened. She'd grown wary of strangers who recognized her. "I am," she answered cautiously. "Can I help you?" The man stepped closer, revealing kind eyes in a face weathered by outdoor work. He gestured to a group of teenagers, gathering samples further down the beach. "I'm Marcus Okafor. I teach environmental science at Westside Academy. My students are participating in your citizen science program and they're having trouble calibrating the salinity meters." Joe relaxed, setting down her tablet. "Of course. I'd be happy to help." As she followed Marcus toward his students, he added, "Your research on microplastic accumulation in intertidal zones is fascinating. We've been using your methodology all semester." The genuine professional respect in his voice was refreshing. No uncomfortable recognition, no veiled curiosity about her personal life, just appreciation for her work. The afternoon passed pleasantly, as Joe showed the students how to properly collect and record data. Marcus moved among them with easy authority, his enthusiasm for marine conservation matching her own. When the teenagers packed up to return to their school bus, he lingered. "Would you consider giving a guest lecture at our school next month? These kids would benefit enormously from hearing directly from someone doing the work they aspire to." Joe hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd enjoy that. Education outreach is important to me." "Great! Can I buy you coffee to discuss the details? Or there's a good taco place nearby if you're hungry." She studied him for a moment. His open expression, the respectful distance he maintained, the wedding ring-free left hand. For the first time in over a year, the prospect of spending time with someone new felt like possibility rather than threat. Tacos sound perfect, she decided. One guest lecture became two, then a regular monthly visit to Marcus's classroom. Coffee after school became dinner conversations that stretched into evening. Marcus shared stories of his childhood in Nigeria, his immigration to Canada as a teenager, his passion for connecting urban students with the natural world. Joe found herself reciprocating with tales of research voyages and underwater discoveries. They moved cautiously, both carrying their own histories. Marcus had lost his fiancée to cancer 5 years earlier. Joe carried the public spectacle of her marriage's end. Neither rushed toward labels or commitments. "I'm still figuring out who I am now," Joe admitted one evening as they walked along the seawall. "The person I was with Ethan feels like someone from another lifetime." Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Grief changes us, whether it's grief for a person or grief for the future you thought you'd have. The trick is recognizing when you've built something new worth cherishing. 6 months into their friendship, for they were careful to call it that, even as it evolved into something deeper, Marcus invited Joe to his school's year-end celebration. His environmental science students had won a provincial award for their coastal conservation project based on Joe's methodology. "They'd love for you to be there," he said. "You've become an important mentor to many of them." The school auditorium buzzed with proud parents and excited teenagers. Joe sat in the audience watching as Marcus's students presented their findings with confidence and passion. When they called her name, acknowledging her contribution to their project, the applause was warm and genuine. Afterward, as families mingled over refreshments, the school principal approached. "Dr. Carter, we've been so fortunate to have your expertise this year," she said. "In fact, I wanted to discuss the possibility of creating a formal partnership between our science department and your research center." As they talked about possibilities for expanded educational outreach, Joe caught sight of Marcus across the room. He was helping a student explain their project to an elderly grandparent, his face animated with pride. He looked up, met Joe's eyes, and smiled, a private connection across the crowded space. In that moment, Joe recognized a truth that had been gradually forming over the past months. Happiness wasn't a destination she would suddenly arrive at, but rather a series of small moments she was learning to recognize and embrace again. The satisfaction of meaningful work, the pleasure of teaching eager minds, the comfort of connections built on genuine respect and shared values. Later, as they walked to her car under a canopy of stars, Marcus took her hand tentatively. "I've been wanting to do this for weeks," he admitted, "but I wasn't sure if you were ready." Joe's fingers interlaced with his, the gesture simple yet profound. "I'm learning that readiness isn't about forgetting the past," she said softly. "It's about making room for something new alongside it." When he kissed her, gentle and unhurried, beneath the spring constellations, Joe felt something long dormant unfurling in her chest, not the desperate passion of her youth or the comfortable familiarity she'd had with Ethan, but something more grounded. A quiet joy built on truth, on seeing and being seen clearly. The next morning, Joe woke to sunshine streaming through her bedroom window and a text from Marcus. "Thank you for last night. Looking forward to wherever this journey takes us." She smiled, typing back, "Me too. One step at a time." Setting down her phone, Joe crossed to the window overlooking the harbor. Ships moved across the horizon, following currents both visible and hidden. She had learned the hard way that life offered no guarantees, no certainties beyond this present moment. But for the first time in a long while, the uncertainty felt like possibility rather than threat. Whatever came next, with her research, with Marcus, with all the unwritten chapters ahead, she would face it with the hard-won knowledge of her own resilience and the understanding that true love, when it appeared, would never ask her to diminish herself or surrender her truth. Joe opened her window, letting the salt-tinged breeze wash over her. Today was enough. Tomorrow would take care of itself.